Hi folks, let this be a tutorial for doing skies, or how I do skies anyway. This is a piece of the cheaper studio paper, Fabriano, £130. I'll give it a wet. It's much easier to wet your paper first, especially if you're beginning. Got a bit of oil on there, oil paint that is. Okay, now while it's in that stage, we can do anything with it, well within reason. The paint will run and flow, but this particular paper is not very porous, so the paint does tend to stay on the top. So we'll give it a warm. Okay, so just this will be the background for clouds and everything else. So it just gives a warm start to the painting. Oh. And while it's like that, we can add some blue. Now I'm not doing, well, my skies are more impressionist than anything else. And look, we can just drop in some blue. And if you're going to put water in, just put it down here. Okay, now we want a bit of cloud in there now, so we've got a bit of light red. And we'll put in some cloud now. Okay, I'll do one on the lovely Saunders water food. I'll do that next. So let's just get. Okay, take it right the way across. Now that's the time. Now, as the paper starts to lose its shine, it's the time to leave it alone. Give it a dry with a hairdryer, or just leave it, go and have a cup of tea. I usually start with a cup of tea. So if you overwork this sort of paper, I'll show you about putting a background in of like a. While that's all wet, you can do this. And we'll find that it all dries lighter. But if you overwork it, you can get some nasty effects. Now, I like to put a bit of, well, let's see, to put in a bit of background to that. You need thick paint, otherwise it will just disappear into the wet. But so the page is still open for more painting. But once it starts to, you can see the paint drying off. That's when you have to leave it alone and go back to it later on. We just put a little bit of reflection in. More blue in there really, just to put that background in. You don't have to do this, but you can cheat and sort of kid everybody that it's all wind ruffled, so you don't see any reflections at all. But that's one sort of sky, and you could just underpin it all with a bit of foreground. I'm using a CAD, no CAD, I'm using lemon yellow because my friend Merv decided that. I'm going through my dark period. A bit of green, just use a bit of ultramarine for that, it's quite thick. Right, Okay, so that's one painting. So there's one sort of sky. We'll take that off. If it dries, I might paint another one on the other side. So we just call this demonstration sky tutorial. Now we'll use a bit of the Saunders Waterford paper. Oh, look at that. Oh, well, can't be helped. That's come from, I don't know where it's come from. I think it's come from the top of my Ziploc bag. But anyway, clean the brush, start again. You can just sort of wet bits of it. Okay, so leave a bit of sparkle on there. So now we can put the yellow ochre on, the raw sienna. A bit of blue. See, this paper is very absorbent. Okay, so you've got a broken sky there, and a bit of water there. And now we're going with a bit of cloud. So my usual cloud is light red and ultramarine. And now we can just dob in some nice cloud, getting fainter as the paint runs out. You can add a bit of water to it if you want. Oh, we have a nice bit of lighter stuff. And then we can underpin that with a landscape or whatever you want to do. Oh, that's a different sky. And we'll do let's have a bit of moorland. A bit of bluey. Bit of yellow in there. But you need a bit of blue in the background when you're painting distance, because the blue gives a lovely distant effect. It's called aerial perspective. Look, we can just make things up now. Just get a bit of blue, bit of that yellow, lemon yellow. Painting in sort of distant fields. Leave a bit of sparkle. And we'll start to warm up as we come into the foreground. Oh, this is just the background to a bit of foreground. I will dry this, I think. Then we can carry on and put some illusion of hedgerows and stuff on it. I do like Payne's Grey. It just gives a nice backup and makes the lovely greens. But I'm using lemon yellow at the moment. Okay, stretch it. No need to pre-stretch your papers. this will go completely flat, provided you've got more or less an equal distribution of water. If you wet the top and not the bottom, then of course you're going to ask for trouble. Right, here we go. These are just basic washes, so I'm going to use my medium hake, Romanson hake. I hope that's fairly dry. No, it must be bone dry because the detail you put on that will start to expand and go in a bit of a cauliflower. So, whoops, I'll have a cup of tea because my hairdryer is overheated. Oh well, we won't bother with that. That'll take a couple of minutes to come back. Right, I'm going to put a bit of distant yellowy so let's just a bit more blue. Needs to be more blue. Ooh, it's come on. Right. So we'll have a faint blue on the background. Oh, you can just elaborate as much as you like, but as long as you've got your aerial perspective right. Aerial perspective is warm colours in the foreground, cool colours in the distance. In the middle distance, well, we've got this sort of bluish colour there, and now we're just putting in some faint and most moorland in the UK is farmland. Well, it's just creating that impression, and as we come towards us, we get more warmer colours. Oh, something out of nothing, really. So warmer colours, and the illusion of detail in the foreground. A lot of dry stone walls and so on. Right, now we want a bit of stuff in the foreground, don't we? So let's have a bit of yellow, bit of blue, bit of burnt sienna, and we'll just put in some of this here. I'm going to try a bit of Payne's grey with cover that bit up. Just a bit of basic tree in the foreground. Just a sort of a foundation. Well, let's get some Payne's grey and burnt sienna. Okay, well there we are, we've got a very basic picture. All the strength is in the foreground, but if you do an elaborate sky and you do an elaborate foreground, they compete against each other. So all the weight is on the foreground with the sky just above it, and I quite like that. Nice bit of sparkle. It's probably overdone it, but for artistic license. But well, let's get a couple of birds. The birds link the land with the sky. That's sort of my feeling about it, and we'll just put a bit of stuff here, just to. I'll put that in a mount. I think that is as basic painting as it gets, really. So I'll go back to the other paper, the Fabriano, and do work on that side. I can't work on that side. That it's got that oil paint on it. So there we are. So it's just a moorland going into the distance with a sky with plenty of sparkle in it. It's another way of doing a sky. Okay, so we'll put that there, put that on the floor, and turn that over, and let's do a bit of basic, maybe tree painting with the sky. Look at that, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I must drink my tea, and it's getting rather warm, but it's clouding over a bit. Right, let's wet the paper. I am a devotee of Ron Ranson. He introduced many of us to the hake 35 odd years ago. I've stayed with it all that time. I do the odd one with sables, but it's not me. Right, okay, so let's get some nice yellow, the raw sienna, leave a little bit of white, let's go all over that. It dries much lighter, as you know. Right, now we'll have a sort of a cloudy sky, so a good colour for that is Payne's grey and alizarin crimson. Now my alizarin crimson I don't use very much, should do. Right, now we'll do a bit more paint, a little bit more paints in there. Right, just put a bit of darker. Oops, I went into the light red there. Payne's grey and alizarin. That gives a nice warm sky. The alizarin warms up that grey. So look there. I'll just see what happens to that. Okay. Can have a bit of blue in there. Okay, put it tight. It's still wet from before on the back, the other side. But this paper makes a lovely support for oil painting, primed or unprimed. The same for acrylic. Acrylic easily go on there. Now you can just tilt the board a bit, and you can have it going the other way, and see what happens to it. Okay, see we've got something running down there. That could do for a bit of a shower. Right, I'll try and dry it. Right, two things here. One, once the shine starts to go off of the paper, in other words, the wet is soaking in eventually to the paper. That's when you leave it alone. Leave it to dry, or dry with the hairdryer, and then when it's dry, you can carry on with it. It's still a little bit damp, but there's an interesting sky. Not sure I like the shape of that, but I like that bit. So now we'll do some basic trees. So a bit of ultramarine mixed in with that Payne's grey. So a bit of sort of fly hill. So that's a cool, very cool colour. That's by mixing ultramarine with Payne's grey. Go all the way across there. Leave some gaps. And then we'll put in a bit of bright green, shall we? Let's go for bright green. Blue and yellow. Bit of sienna. Vary the colours. Let it merge a bit if you want to. There we go, right into that with some nice bright green. Okay, then we'll dry that again. Then we can carry on. We've got enough wetting wet on there. Now we can start to build up a bit of body in that middle distance now, with the blue as just the background. So we'll just have a darker green, bit of burnt sienna in there, bit of blue, and just put some of this in, cover up some of that other. It might be a little bit muddy. This is where you can cover up your nasty bits. few bushes. And there, there's a bit of red in there. Okay, there's nothing much, it's just the background to that sky, a foreground to that sky. A bit of rough ground, I like rough ground. Let's just come up here with something. Okay, get a bit of that yellow again, bit of blue. Too wet, just take some water off the brush. Bit of green in there, or a bit of yellow, masquerading as green. Get a bit of yellow back in that. Bit of dark on the other side. Put another one over there, just to make it different from the clean the brush, get the yellow in. Too sloppy, so take some off the brush. And we've got that darker colour on the shadow side. Okay, well, so there we are. We've got a sort of a tree study, more rough ground. We've got that green back in there. The background's a bit too dark for that one, so we'll make it a little bit darker. Okay, so we've got a tree and a sky study there, very loosely painted. I'll put it in a mount and we'll have a look. It's still wet and it will dry a little bit lighter than it is at the moment. And I'll drink my tea. So there we are, there's a very basic watercolour, showing washes and putting it all together into a picture. So we can take that up a bit, low horizon. So we're just looking through a sort of a barrier of foreground tree, middle distance trees, into the distance, in a threatening storm. I think we'll sign it, I quite like it. As a demo, tutorial. Right, okay. smudge that. Can always put a few rigorous strokes in that, but just a suggestion is all you need really with these things. Just a suggestion of the illusion of detail, something there, you know. Let the viewer fill the gaps in. Okay, I'll leave that one as the sort of demonstration, but there are two paintings there in one showing how I paint skies, my approach to skies. Very simple, very quick, very easy when you get the knack of not overdoing it. I always put my skies in first. I always wet all of the paper. So if you're setting out the watercolours, I hope you learn something from this. I know I take it for granted, and I've not spent any time doing a great portrait of a sky. I've just tried to create a mood, creating a mood. I'm not a great detail painter. I try to create something that all demonstrates texture and tone. Really, texture and tone, very important. More important than anything else, really. Texture, tone. And of course, aerial perspective, which is the illusion of distance. That looks distant because I've used blue and greys and kept the light. Here we've got warm colours in the foreground, and that brings forward. So it gives you that three-dimensional effect on a two-dimensional piece of paper. Anyway, hope you like that, folks. Thanks for looking in. Bye bye.